So Lori has 35 plus years experience as an HR consultant and a business owner. She has walked in the shoes of many business owners and HR professionals. She understands the nuances of HR and how to strategically pull HR and business together, ensuring that everyone's best interests are considered and maintained. She's a dynamic presenter at national conferences, highly skilled in training within the corporate space, and author of 4 books, including Taking Your Seat at the Table and HR Hacks. Lori has a master's degree in human resources, is certified at the highest level in the HR field, and is a member of the National Speakers Association. Welcome, Lori, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. And I was saying earlier, isn't it fun what a professional photo shoot can do? So you're like looking at me side by side with my image that you see all over social media, but this is the real thing. So hello, nice to see and meet all of you. Why don't we go on to the next slide? We've seen enough of me. And we just lost Janet. I'm not sure why. Let me start by telling you a teeny bit about myself. And I think because this audience is so diverse, it's really terrific. I started my HR career in my family business. I went to college thinking I was going to be an accountant. And some of you on the call know me personally and know why I did not go into accounting. That would have never been a good fit. So I went into my family business, and we were in the commercial photography business, which you can all imagine where that is today, out of business. And so I had to figure out what to do next. And that was the first lemon in my career. So Kathy, if you can do the next slide, that would be great. And I started my own HR consulting company. I had a little, and this, yeah, Kathy, you can just run through these. I think it's about 4 clicks. And this might be something, oops, can we go back one?
Yeah,
this may be something you all want to consider. And if anybody does, you are welcome to reach out to me. But I thought while I was raising my kids, I would have my own HR consulting company, help businesses out there, and at the same time, have this little cottage business. It ended up growing to be 6 people working in the basement of my home in about a 7-year period, and almost $1 million in sales. And that really was my next lemon. I had to figure out what on earth to do next because it was not sustainable like that. And along came Arthur J. Gallagher. Many of you probably know Gallagher Benefit Services, Gallagher Bassett for workers' comp, that sort of thing. They bought my consulting company. And then I stayed on and worked for Bassett or Gallagher for another 7 years until I left and did my own HR topics. I do have a master's degree in HR, and I'm excited to report that I did get it virtually. So it was before the days of Ashford and online education. I got it in 1998. And it really was almost akin to correspondence school, but it was great. And so I passionately believe in what you all are doing. And I work with Dr. Katie on the advisory board. So that's a little bit about my background. And I do have both my SPHR and my SHRM SCP. So just so that you know, I come to this with entrepreneurial experience, with family business, with corporate, wherever you are, I sort of have something in that piece. So I like to share that with people. So on a webinar especially, you get a feel of who I am and that sort of thing. I will tell you a teeny little funny thing before we jump into the content. If any of you are wondering whether or not it makes sense to be active on social media, Dr. Katie actually saw a presentation that I did that was being live streamed from the SHRM conference. Oh, Katie, I'm thinking now, it must have been 2015. And she and I got to know each other through that. And it's been an amazing relationship for both of us, except, well, I guess I can't speak for you, Dr. Katie, but I think it's been great. So anyway, so that's a little bit about me. Okay, Janet, we can go to the next slide, or if Catherine's still here.
Yes, I am.
Okay. So we can go to the next slide.
I'm trying.
All right. So one of the questions I asked, it looked like most of you are actively looking, but what I want to make sure we include in today's conversation are ideas that you may want to bring back to your own businesses about how to do recruiting. So as I was putting these slides together, I do want to be able to kind of yin and yang back from the job seeker, which is what we're really going to focus on, but also bring in the HR professional and what I see people doing out there today, because you might want to think of some of that. While we're trying to get the slides, and you know what? Here's an idea. I am going to open the slides on my desktop so that at least I can follow along. Should I just take control? Why don't...
Yes, that's what I would do, is you go ahead and take control, and then,
it'll stop yours. Perfect. But here is the slideshow on my side. Can you all see it now, just to confirm?
Yeah.
Perfect. Good. So let's just do it this way. Let me start it from this slide. Slideshow. Come on. Move that over. Come on. There we go. All right. Perfect. So what do we see changing in recruiting today? We really, in the real world, are moving from just hiring people to truly strategically staffing positions. And one of the things I want to encourage you as job seekers, I just want to open the chat, so if anybody's saying anything, because at the moment I can't see it. As job seekers, if any of you, all right, I'm going to let you guys manage the chat. That'll be fine. I want you to really think about being strategic about where you're going to work as well. Because businesses are more tolerant of candidates that may not have worked somewhere 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years. But if they see that you are constantly taking jobs for 4 or 5 months, 5 or 6 months, they are going to feel like you are not, maybe it's that you don't know what you want. Why don't I say it that way? So it's equally important when you go in on an interview that you have a mindset of, I'm interviewing them too. And we're going to talk at the end of this about, questions that you should have ready to ask them, I think. Yeah. And don't just ask them about benefit and pay. And, I would say if I got a phone call at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and found out my mother had just been taken to the hospital, what is the culture in this organization? Would I typically finish out my 2 hours, which is fine if that's the culture I'm just trying to understand, or do people come and go as they need throughout the day? Now, I don't know if I would ask that question. I just thought of it on the fly. But, you want to ask, so I would love to know, do we refer to the CEO by the first name or Mr. something? That tells you a lot about how formal the organization is. And so you want to be just as strategic as they are being. Think about if you're the kind of person who likes to come to work, be in your cubicle, get your work done, concentrate in a pretty quiet environment, that's fabulous. You may be somebody that's more like me, more wanting to get up, do things all the time, change around. Those are the kinds of questions to ask at the end of the interview. What is the environment like? How do people interact with each other? because you want to make sure that when you make the choice of where you're going to go to work, that you're going to stay there because it's a good fit. Okay. So anybody have any questions? Oh, there we go. Now, why can't I see the chat box? All right, no big deal. Any questions about that idea? And this is, as we're talking about in our businesses, this is something you want to explain to hiring managers of why it takes 6 to 8 weeks to find someone. Because you are not just filling a seat. Rather, you are really trying to spend time to find that person that makes a good fit. So hopefully
Lori, it's Janet. There's no questions so far, just so you're aware.
Perfect. Thanks.
Although I have a quick question.
Yes.
So when you say to be strategic in employment, as far as being somebody who's searching for employment,
right?
Would you also include that to mean moving laterally within your career for experience?
I absolutely think it is fine to take a lateral move when, so for instance, actually, my daughter just moved. Well, it ended up being a promotion, but she was interviewing laterally. And you might take a lateral move to learn a new industry, to just be closer to home, to maybe the culture of the organization is a better fit for who you are. I would just make sure that when you're making lateral moves, you can still explain why that's a good reason when you're in the interview. The issue with lateral moves, I can absolutely tell you, is that person who moves from job to job to job. Why? Because the manager wasn't good. Because they didn't explain to me my job description. Because there's a point where there aren't that many bad managers out there. And if you keep working for every one of them, maybe the problem is you. So, that's what people are really looking for today. They just want a good reason why you've moved from job to job. And it can be because my commute was 1 hour and 10 minutes and I found this job 15 minutes from home. Now, if that's your reason, just make sure you're interviewing for another job 15 minutes from home. Because if you're interviewing for a job 1 hour and 10 minutes away, I'm not going to hire you for that. Because you've already told me that didn't work for you. So it's a lot about storytelling when we're on the interviewing side. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I have some notes about that. All right. So
Bill Davis it's not quite a question. It's more of a comment, but it's a good one. First, he says, great insights, Lori. Also, one question I would ask that he would ask as an executive when he interviewed was this: what do you reward and recognize? And the answer, of course, would be a good indicator of organizational culture. So he would ask, what do they reward or recognize?
Yes, you know what, David? I love that. I think I'm writing that down. I
think I'm writing it down too.
I know. So everybody on the call.
That question never occurred.
So at the end of your interview, when they say, do you have any questions for us? You might choose to ask, what skills or behaviors do you reward or recognize? And that will tell you, if it's helping others or making personal goals, or we only pay bonuses on the ROI of the overall company. David, that's wonderful. Thank you. We might all steal that. David, where do you live? We don't want to all be interviewing for the same job. No, I'm kidding.
It's Bill Davis. Sorry if I said it wrong.
Oh,
it's
okay.
Bill.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. No, that's perfect. And everybody keep chiming in with these ideas because it takes a village. And I do not have all the answers. I had invited Judy Hale, who's on the Ashford Advisory committee with me. We both are on the HR with Dr. Katie. And, Judy, if you have any ideas too, chime in. This is, we can crowdsource this. One of the things that businesses are being told over and over and over today are to hire for attitude, train for skills, and then cultivate the drive of the employees. So what does that really mean? How do you show your attitude on your resume? Think about, we're going to talk a little bit about resumes in a bit, but think about whether you go into an interview or you're writing a resume to really focus on those action verbs. Have you been helpful? Have you developed? Have you collaborated? Have you coordinated? Those are things that businesses want to see today. They can teach you how to use their computer system, their proprietary whatever. Now, a lot of resumes do still get scanned by computers, so make sure that you've got that skills section. I'm not saying to leave it out, but you really want to make sure that your resume is speaking to your attitude and the kinds of things that you've done. What businesses are looking for today are people that are collaborative, that can think outside the box, that will make decisions in the moment, that will take ownership, that are entrepreneurial, even within a large corporation or a large company. Those are really what we're seeing. And Dr. Katie and Judy, if you have any additional thoughts, because those are your world as well, I know, feel free to chime in. But that's what I see businesses looking for. And that's what they're going to be interviewing for. So when you practice an interview and you think about what I want to go in and talk to them about, don't focus on the fact that you know how to do a pivot table in Excel. I mean, that might be lovely. You could tell them that if they ask you about your Excel skills, but really get them talking about, so here's a perfect example. The ability that all of you must have to be successful at working, doing this online education piece, for many of you also managing a family, and how you can juggle tasks and make sure all of that gets done well. That is a great story to be talking about at an interview, that you don't wait for a class in a traditional brick and mortar university where a teacher tells you what to do and you do it and you hand it. You have a great amount of planning and organizational skills to get through this program, or it's pretty easy to slip through the cracks if you didn't. So bring that to light at the interviews to show them some of those attitudes that you have and some of the soft skills that being a working professional who's also getting an education can really do for them. So does that make sense? Janet, I see you're reading a lot. Do we have any comments?
I do have one.
Okay.
Dr. Katie, states that, as you've shared from an employee perspective, how does the prospective employee in turn find the right organizational culture, right? Because employers are looking for people with the right attitude, the right fit. How does the employee do that, or the potential employee?
Right, or the candidate. So
exactly.
One way that is beautiful today is you should be stalking these people on social media. If you get to like a second interview phase or a live interview, try to figure out through LinkedIn who works there. Try to look on Facebook if they've got a presence. I don't quite know how to use Instagram, but I'm sure those of you that are younger than me do. Businesses, are their employees posting pictures? looking happy at work. Now, the best new site is called Glassdoor. And I guess if you don't know what Glassdoor is, put it in the notes and Janet will let me know. But you definitely want to be checking out a business's Glassdoor rating. Essentially, Glassdoor is Yelp for employees. But the way to really see what's going on is I would get to an interview 30 minutes early. I would stay in the parking lot for the first 15 minutes. Now, if it's a big building, you may not be able to tell from the parking lot. There is this really bizarre bias for people coming into an interview too early. I think it's sort of silly, but there is. So don't get there. But I would get there 15 minutes early. I think that that's a really good amount of time to show that you're, on time and prepared and ready, but not so early that they feel like they have to entertain you. And just sit in the reception area. You will be able to tell from the way people treat the receptionist, the way he or she answers the phone. Is she upbeat? Does she like her job? Is she referring to people by first name, by last name? And you can ask a receptionist, hey, what do you like working here? What are some of the best parts of working here? What are some of the worst parts? See what she'll tell you. I think it's absolutely fine to ask that person that question. So those are some ways. Even when you're interviewing in someone's office, be looking around. A manager in today's day and age really should never interview you with the door closed. So for those of you who are also HR professionals, don't ever go into an interview room and close the door. In my opinion only. There's nothing legally wrong with it, but you don't know who you're walking into that room with. And I'm sorry, guys, in this day and age, you don't know who you're walking into that room with. So I don't suggest you interview people in your reception area, but I would interview them with an open door. If you, as an interviewee, can arrange yourself around the table so that you're facing out, you'll be able to see a little bit of the culture. What are people wearing? Are they heads down, always on a phone or an iPad? Or are they greeting each other? All those kinds of things are what you're really looking for as you're interviewing someone. Make sense? All right.
Judy Dale made a really interesting comment, Lori.
Sure.
She says that you're right on. Write the resume for the reader, not yourself.
Mm-hmm. So
I've never heard it put that way. That's wonderful.
I'm going to make myself a note when we talk about resumes, though. And I'll know what I want to talk about. Okay. This I wanted to throw in here just because you are still all HR students, and I just couldn't help myself. So these are all the steps in the recruiting process. And a good HR company. So for those of you that are just looking for a foot in the door in HR, this also will help give you a feel if the person who is calling you in is somebody you want to learn from. What do I mean by that? If you apply for an HR assistant job and you get an email that says, please come in and interview with us next Thursday at 3:00, those are not people you want to learn from. Those are people that are just filling seats. People that truly want to get to know you and decide if it's a win-win relationship will do a phone screen first. They will talk to you over the phone because you don't want to take half a day off work to go down and interview for a job that they're really looking for somebody to get coffee and make copies. You, after finishing your program, want a job that they are truly going to teach you human resources. So think about this. And then from the college standpoint, I just thought I'd share it with you because I thought it was, I use this all the time. It doesn't usually look this ugly. When I do my slides, I do them in something called Keynote. And when I transfer them to PowerPoint, this always happens. But anyway, I just wanted to share it with you. So, okay, cool. Next steps. Oh, well, this was, I had a slide on this and I didn't even remember. Obviously, this is not the program I do very, I put this together for you all. So I think we got most of these things. The one thing that we didn't really talk about, but it's so true, is their website updated? Is it clear that they get and use technology? Do they have a social media presence? Janet, did we have anyone who wanted to know what Glassdoor was, or did everybody know? Let me know if we need.
Nobody asked exactly what Glassdoor is. Like Tanisha Neal, one of our founding officers, agrees that it's a great tool. And I personally also use Glassdoor often. I just caution people to be careful of the comments that employees put in there.
Right.
You have to take them with a grain of salt and make sure they're truly objective.
And, it's exactly like Yelp. It is absolutely fine if you go on Glassdoor and a company has negative to talk about it at the interview. Because a lot of times what you might find is that there was a really difficult manager and they're no longer with the organization. You might find that they just closed an entire division and a lot of people were really pissed and lost their job. So to your point, Janet, which is excellent, you do have to really weigh it. I mean, if a company has all bad Glassdoor reviews, I wouldn't completely say forget it. The other thing, if any of you are interviewing in smaller companies, you probably won't find any Glassdoor reviews, and that's not really a negative either. I mean, they're just too small. Janet, were you going to say something? No? Okay.
Judy has an example to add. She's stated in the comments. I'm not sure if we should unmute her so she can do that.
We can. I don't think I've got manage participant. There we go. Okay, hold on a minute, Judy. I can unmute you. Okay. Unmute away. Go for it.
Well, thanks, Lori. One of the things I've learned over the years, now I'm not interviewing from HR, I'm interviewing as a consultant, is that I have learned that companies reveal more of themselves and the culture in their earlier interviews than they do later on. When they get serious, they start getting more on guard and more, shall we say, politically correct. So what do I mean by revealing things? If I'm going in and they want me to have lunch, I might suggest the employee cafeteria, and I hear, well, God, we don't eat there. That they said something there. The employee cafeteria is okay for them, but it's not okay for us. I've done things like I put my valise down on the floor, only later to have a mouse climb out. Oh, we have this rodent problem. Don't let that bother you. You talked about sitting in the parking lot. I look at the condition of the curbs. If the sidewalk is cracked, if the landscaping is not cared for, if they are not investing in their infrastructure, that means that they're not investing in their people. So I mean, there's a whole lot that you can learn just from observing. And you're right, watching how they treat the receptionist. Do they say good morning to her when they walk in? Do they just blow her off? How does is she positive in her demeanor, or he, or whoever? The point is, a lot is revealed in the very early stages because they're not on guard.
Well,
and they don't understand it.
I love your idea of even the condition of the parking lot. Does it have potholes all over it? Great example. So thank you, Judy. The last bullet here about employee identification, that's the whole idea of trying to find people like on LinkedIn. These days, someone can always find someone who knows someone at some company. Feel free, any of you who want to link in with me, I'm happy to do it. People often email me and say, I saw so-and-so on LinkedIn in your profile, can you introduce me? I will tell you, I typically don't know these people. I mean, I'm sorry, but I don't. Lots of people link in with me, but I'm happy to introduce you. I will just send a LinkedIn. The truth is they know me. Now, sometimes I do know them. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I mean, I think I'm over 3,000 people on LinkedIn. I just did a webinar yesterday for Bamboo HR, and I woke up and I was like, what's going on in LinkedIn? I had like 42 requests. So, but I will always connect you. So if somebody is interviewing at a company and they see that I'm a second link, then just reach out. And reach out to anyone. People will always do that, hopefully, for you. Maybe not everybody, but hopefully they will. So look for people who work there. Okay, let's see, next. So networking. This is how so many people are finding new employees today. If you want a particular industry, go to those industry meetings. My son's best friend growing up was determined to work for Major League Baseball. I mean, I've never seen a college kid so incredibly determined. He bought himself a plane ticket, stayed at the cheapest hotel he could find in Las Vegas, and when they were having their owners' meetings, he literally sat in the lobby of the hotel and handed out his resumes. And he put a note on it to say, I'm in town. If you'd like to meet, here's my phone number. It was I'm like, are you serious? It worked. He works for the LA Angels. Is that what they're called? Anaheim Angels, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the Anaheim Angels. He is their head of minor league operations now. So be out there if there's an industry you really want to work in. You guys are all over the country and clearly wanting to be in HR, go to your local SHRM chapter meetings. You will meet people who are in HR and who know other HR people. Be out there at events. Think about, too, where you socialize. I mean, if you have a religious institution that's important to you, make sure to let your religious leader know, hey, I'm looking for a job in HR. You might not hear of one today, but you don't know how often I have a person say to me, oh, I'm looking to get into HR. And actually, Dr. Katie, that was one of your questions, and I need to address that. How do you break in? So I will address that in a second. And then I say, well, I don't know anything. And then 2 weeks later, one of my LinkedIn people puts up, looking for entry-level person. And I say, hey, what about this person? And get them connected. Don't be embarrassed, or I shouldn't even say embarrassed, because there would be no reason to be embarrassed. Put on your LinkedIn status, getting close to finishing my degree at Ashford. If anybody knows opportunities in human resources, give me a call. And I would put it out there every week, because especially LinkedIn, the stuff gets lost in the news feed. And so if you're not constantly putting it there, if you finish your class in recruiting, you finish your class in compensation, put it on LinkedIn. Finish my class. It was sort of tricky, but I got through it with a B+, really excited. Because then people know you're working on your HR degree, and they're going to assume you're looking to get HR positions. So you be as much of a networker as we're telling businesses to be these days. And it doesn't have to be about an expensive, you can just post it in your feed. All right. Oh boy, I better hurry up. See, I talk about this HR stuff and I just love it. So before you know it, I'm flying along. So these are the major job boards. There's really nothing to tell you about it. I assume you all know these places. Be really careful when you apply for jobs on your phone. Now, as a recruiter, I will tell you that I do forgive more misspellings and punctuation errors and those sorts of things today than I would have 5 years ago, because I know people are applying from their phones. But if you're going to do that, double check what you're typing, because a lot of people will just bounce you right out if there's a typo, and they don't know that you applied from your phone. When you apply for something on Indeed, it doesn't tell me you applied from a smartphone. So I just see a typo. And 2 years ago, I wouldn't have even read the resume. Now I know what people are doing. So it depends. I mean, if you have a typo, you better be dead nuts on the person I'm looking for. Then I might see if it's just a cell phone thing. But be careful about that. Anybody have any questions about the job board? Hi, Catherine's dog. She warned us she might have
There's
dogs.
no actual questions. There's a couple of comments, though.
Sure.
So, Dr. Theory, Dr. Katie had a couple. She started with, that she loved the point you were making, and that she states that she was hearing that you recommend do your company research up front, prior to your interview. And she mentioned, we all have limited time. Even applying takes time. But don't bother applying to a company you wouldn't want to work for anyway. And she's looking at quality over quantity.
Yeah. So
unless you're just, of course, looking for a job to look for a job,
right?
A paycheck.
I write ads to encourage people to self-select out of applying. I do not want you to waste my time as a candidate any more than I want to waste your time as an employer. And so when I write ads can I say Dr. Katie? Should I be saying Dr. Theory? Sorry, Katie. Well, you all know who we mean. The doc. How about if we just say the doc? So when I write ads, I really put information in there to hope that a lot of people will choose not to apply because they're not the kind of person I want. I have a resume sitting right here on my desk so that you do not think that I am lying. This young man applied for a job for which he was completely unqualified. No doubt. He had none of the skills we needed. However, the amount of research he did, the understanding, he's a sophomore in college, he's probably 19, maybe 20 years old. The understanding he had about the business that I was recruiting for so impressed me that I called the owner of the business and said, we need to find a job for Joshua. I still don't know where we're going to put Joshua, but Joshua will be working for my client before the end of the year. I promise you. Because that is when I started this saying, hire for attitude, train for skills. There is no doubt from my 20-minute phone screen with this young man, I can train him to do anything I need him to do. And that is what employers are looking for. So I didn't plan this, I swear. I forgot we were even going to talk about this. It is sitting front and center on my desk, figuring out where we're going to put him. So you can make the same impact to an employer that you may end up in a job that you didn't even apply for. A good recruiter, and I know, Janet, this is who you're supporting today. I really believe a good recruiter can put every candidate has a home. Well, let's just say 85% of the We've all met the other 15%. But I worked for a bank for a very long time doing recruiting. I was actually a temp, and they were blown away by my placement numbers. And when the manager used to say to me, I don't understand how you are outperforming everybody else on the team. And I said, because everybody I meet, I find a job for. I mean, we were a bank. We had a stack. Our job listing was like the yellow pages. I know some of you are so young, you don't know what I'm talking about. But anyone I met, so I was sending a lot of people outside our division. I didn't care, So anyway, I forgot how we got there, but I wanted to share that. I think it was some of those comments that really, because the doc said, that you
typed in that you can just call her Katie.
Okay, call her Katie. She was saying about doing your homework. And so those are a couple of stories about why it is so important. That's what people want from their employees today. They want employees that will take initiative, that will do research, that will find the answers. And that is what this kid said to me. What he knew about this company, because it's a small unpublished company, what he was able to find was amazing. So I just put this slide in here for fun. I found it in social media this year, so I'll just kid around with you and then we'll move on.
This is a real job posting?
It was on social media. I cannot imagine it was a real job posting.
Right.
I think it was a joke. But, if no matter how desperate you are for work, and I am sure that we have people on this call who are unemployed and saying, oh yeah, well, that's great for her to say that I should wait around for the right job, but today I just need a job. This is still not a job to apply for, but it was funny and whatever. I thought I'd just share. Okay, so now let's go into the whole writing resumes piece. And this is not a session on writing resumes, but I want to give you a couple of tips. First of all, I totally agree with Judy that you want to write the resume for the reader. The impossible part of writing a resume is you don't know who your reader is. And so I look at resumes very differently than other HR people look at. I mean, everybody just has their own way. So you want to make sure that you're kind of covering all your bases and that you are writing for a computer. It will always be seen by a human down the road. But you've got to have those key words in there for the computer to catch if you are applying at large corporations, because that's sort of their first sorting database. One of the things, though, that cautions me when people send or have 4 different resumes, maybe you have a resume for HR, a resume for training and development, and then maybe you have a resume for some other field altogether. You've got to be sure you are sending the right resume to the right job. I get resumes all the time. I was just hiring, for example, for a assistant to a marketing person. And somebody's resume came across that said that their objective was to be a nurse. I didn't read 1 minute further. So if you're going to do that, just make sure that you're very careful who you're attaching which resume to. I am not a big fan of objectives in resumes. If you are just finishing your degree, we know your objective. It's to get a job. So don't feel like you have to fluff that up a whole lot. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but Katie had asked the question, how do you break in, or that a lot of you want to break into HR training and development and may not be there today? The key is on your resume, have words like customer service, business integration, department coordination. I often, and I don't write resumes professionally, so please don't all of you call me, but I do it all the time for my kids and their friends. And so I can turn a young person who comes to me and says, I don't know what to put on a resume, I have no experience at all. You should see what I can pull out of them. Those of you who are coming back to school later in life, and maybe you're trying to re-enter the workforce, were you the head of a PTA book sale? Did you go to volunteer to read at the library once a week? All those things show the kind of skills we want from our employees. That you were a reliable volunteer at the local library, that you you had cash management skills. I mean, so what if all you earned was $125 through the book sale? You still did it, and so don't discount some of the things that you do in your personal life as not belonging on a resume. Because a lot of you have a lot more skills that are of interest to business than you think you do. So you've got a great career department. Actually, the head of your career department drove me to the airport last month and is the most adorable person in the world. Katie, now I'm forgetting her name, but make sure everybody knows her. She's wonderful.
It's Grace Williamson.
Yes, Grace Williamson.
She's fantastic. Yes, I got to meet her at graduation. She's wonderful.
Yes. So everybody, I don't want to steal Grace's thunder. She's got a team of 6 people ready to support you. Grace is a rock star and can help you with your resume. You're welcome to reach out to me, but Grace gets paid to do it. So let's let Grace and her team do it. Okay, next, interview options. And we only have like 5 or 6 minutes left. When you get me talking about HR, I sort of get long-winded, sorry. So if people have to jump off, I'm not the least bit offended, but we do have a couple more things we just want to share. One thing that I just want to point out so that you guys are not taken aback or nervous by it, more and more companies are starting to do video interviews. Not only video like this on Zoom, but also where they send you a link, a computer asks you questions and you have to record your answers. Don't be surprised. It's starting to be more and more popular. I do a lot of interviews on Zoom because I am all over the country and I can't meet people. And for you, it's a lot easier too. So make sure that you've got a device with a decent camera. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. Your smartphone works beautifully. And that you understand how to use Zoom, how to log in. You can go to Zoom and get a free account and just practice with your spouse, with your family, with your sister, with your mother. But make sure that if they send you a Zoom link for an interview, you can do it. I interviewed somebody last week for a position. I interviewed 2 people. One woman couldn't figure out how to get it to work. The other woman had her daughter set it all up for us. She was not really shy about telling us that she practiced with her daughter. She knew it would work, blah, 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 blah. That said to me, she was proactive. She was organized. She was not afraid to ask for help. Those were all really key things before I even asked her one question. The other woman, we didn't even go further with. If she couldn't figure out how to do this on time, she wasn't going to figure out what we needed to figure out in our office. So make sure that you do that, that you practice. Most people are using Zoom. They use either Zoom or WebEx. They all work the same. So if you can work one, you can work the other.
Lori.
Yeah.
And I apologize now if I pronounce her name incorrectly. I don't know if it's Joycelyn or Jocelyn, but she said she had an interview one time where she came in and was given a task to perform by the owner. Is there a name for that type of interview? Do you know?
Well, I mean, some people call it a working interview. It's not, I mean, there's a lot of literature right now that it is the most effective. I would never do it for a first interview, but I do it for a lot of last interviews. So it is not uncommon that I ask people to bring in a work sample, do a work sample while they're sitting there. So, that's somebody, though, that's more focused on the skill than the culture. And so just think about that as what it says about the business. Now, I think it's a great thing.
She stated that it was during the initial interview.
Yeah, I mean, it means that they're very task-oriented. Now, is that really any different, though, from going to interview at these big box stores, and the minute you submit your interview, you're getting, the psychological test pops up, and they won't even talk to you unless you finish it. So, but I would say to the business owner, don't waste your time if you don't even like them. I mean, the first thing has to be that culture fit for a good long-term business fit. So, but some people do it. I mean, especially like if it were a very technical position, like I work a lot with veterinary technicians, believe it or not. So, might I say to a vet, before you waste your time, let's give them a 10-question vet tech test and make sure that they know, a dog from a cat. But if I did that, I would do it before I even talk to them on the phone. If it was that important. So sometimes people do it early on, but I would never make someone come in to do that. That'd be my thing. So make sure you probably teach this in school, that you all know about behavioral interviewing. And the reason that I just wanted to pop it in here today is to make sure that you think about your stories before you go to an interview. So think about a time you did something you were really proud of. Think about the manager that you want to talk about as being the best manager you ever worked for. Think about a time where you didn't make a deadline, so that during the interview, it doesn't throw you for a loop. Those are the kinds of questions people are starting to ask these days. So just have some of those stories in the back of your mind as you go forward. The last slide, I think, yes, perfect, that I wanted to, this doesn't look right, share with you. There are legal and illegal interview questions. So here's a question I get all the time when I talk to people about this. What do I do as an HR professional if the person interviewing me asks me a question that I know is illegal? Because likely you are going to walk into some of these interviews knowing more than the person interviewing you. Hopefully, because I know you're all getting this, interviewing education. So what do? And Katie or Judy, if you have an alternate thought, chime in. But what I tell people to say, I tell them to take a deep breath and to say, that's a really good question. I don't really know if you're testing my HR skills or if you truly want me to answer that question. But that's not something that we're really supposed to ask candidates. What would you like me to do? Because sometimes, maybe they're just trying to see if you know what are illegal interview questions. that's my best advice to people. A lot of people will just go ahead and answer the question because they don't want to offend the interviewer. But I think if you can put it back on yourself by saying, hey, as somebody with an HR education or an HR background, I know that that's not really something that we're allowed to ask. But if you'd really like to know the answer, I'll be happy to provide it for you. And that way you don't act argumentative, but you kind of put them on notice that they can't ask you that stuff. So that's just my suggestion. I don't know if anybody wants to, any other thoughts or comments, or if anybody's had that happen to them, throw it in the job board. And then the last thing, I just want to make sure that you all, in ending, really do end with written job offers. You want your job offer in writing. And that job offer should talk about any benefits they've promised you, who you're going to report to, what is your job title, whether you're going to be hourly or salaried, all that sort of thing, what the start date is. So make sure that you are always getting a written job offer, especially if you got another position before you quit that other position. You want a job offer in writing. So with that, let me stop sharing my screen. All right.
Lori,
Yes.
There is a question from Rebecca Davis, and she said many times when asked, tell me about yourself, a candidate will mention they have children. She's asking, does this open the door for an employer to ask about their children in more detail?
So legally not. A good HR person will just ignore that. However, remember, it isn't illegal to ask the question. It's illegal to use the information to make a decision. So the fact that it comes up naturally comes up all the time. You just can't not hire someone because they have children. So, I see Grace joined us. Grace, I'm sorry I forgot your name. Now I see she's on the call. You're a wonderful driver, Grace. Oh, she's probably typing in now. But I gave you a major shout out. So somebody is writing in, which is great, because I do know Ashford has a lot of military people. A big thing you need to combat is the bias that you're going to move every 2 years. That's a hard one. You know, Grace, boy, if you guys want to hear Grace talk, she has a wonderful story as a military spouse of how she not only went around the world, but kept incredible gainful employment the entire time. So I might suggest, Grace, that a future chapter meeting, your story is wonderful about how you were able to both support your husband in the military and really make a beautiful career for yourself. So, those kinds of things, what you want to do before you go into the interview is just think about how you're going to answer that. Because when these things get asked, and you may want to bring it up right off the bat, as a military spouse, I know you might be worried that I'm not going to stick around. But here are some things that I can bring to the table. Here are some lessons I've learned. Think about a business that's very global, what you could bring to them as a military spouse who's lived in 4 different countries. And the truth is, I think there's a big difference in my career from the 1980s and today. I am probably no longer worried about a military spouse who sticks around 2.5, 3 years because most people don't stick around much longer than that. You know, I'm no longer looking for the employee that stays 7 years with my company. I'll be really honest with you. If I look at a resume and somebody's worked at a company for 6 or 7 years and has not had progressive, hasn't gotten better jobs even within that company, I'm wondering what the heck's up with them. You know, these days, move somewhere else, do something interesting. So I know it's 5 after 4. Any other questions? I'm sort of looking at these. I don't expect you, Janet, to read all this. Cool. Yeah, but you know what, Katie? I've had a couple people do that. And I don't really believe the part about asking illegal questions. I don't believe they're really trying to test. I believe that they don't have a flipping clue what they're supposed to be doing. We put managers out in the world and then, that's what you meant. Good. And then we just think that they know how to do these things and they don't have a clue. So anyway, all right. Well, right. People have meetings to get to. I know you all have, but if anybody would love to connect, I'd be happy to. I had a really good time. Anyone who is in California, I will tell you, I'm going to be there the next month. SHRM is having on Monday, December 3rd, we're having a Department of One Summit. And the next day, December 4th, there's a California law update. So if anybody's on the West Coast, there's my contact information. Yep. And if anybody wants, I write a weekly blog. I'll be happy to add you to the list. Just send me an email. If you go to my website, you can sign up. You can get some tools and that kind of stuff. Anyway, it was very fun. Great to meet everybody. I think you might have some closing comments, Janet. I'm not sure.
Just a couple quick ones. Lori, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And again, here's Lori's contact information. We are recording the webinar, so it will be available. If you aren't able to jot down her information, you'll be able to find it on our website. And we do have a new website. So once you visit our website, you can, if you're not a member already, feel free to please go click the Join Us tab. A membership form will pop up and you'll be able to sign up. And again, membership to our organization, our Ashford Ford School of Business and Technology SHRM chapter is free. And also all of our events are also on our website. If you click on events, you will see a listing of all of our upcoming webinars, along with your login information, and you'll see a section if you scroll down where our webinars are archived. So please feel free to go back and look at any of our previous webinars. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. You can email us or you can choose our Contact Us tab on our website. We'll just need your name, your email address, and a message, and we will get back to you as quickly as we can. Finally, thank you for joining us today. And again, there is a link to our webpage if you're interested. Thank you, everybody. Lori, thank you again so much. This was a fantastic webinar.
Sure, glad. I'm happy to help.